Hello once again. Here we are, looking at the fourth fruit of the Spirit. It's a bit of a wait. I planned on doing this one a few days ago, but we kind of had to wait, which is appropriate because fourth fruit of the Spirit, patience. So here we are, patience. And what do we know about patience? Well, we do know this. We are not a very patient society in North America. We are not at all a patient society. I'm familiar with Uganda. And in Uganda, the national pastime is waiting. Everybody waits. You wait in line at the banks. You wait in line to purchase goods. You wait in line. You're constantly waiting. And people are sitting on the sidewalks, so they're standing on the street corners or under a tree selling little trinkets. And they'll do that for 10, 12 hours a day. They'll sell shoes, or and they're used shoes, or old beat up books, or stacks of toilet paper, or they will sell everything, but they sit there all day in the sun, waiting. And so it's something that we very rarely have to deal with in Canada, waiting. In fact, everything about life right now in North America is fast. Everything has to be fast. Going back to Uganda, when we first went over to Uganda in 2007, we would go to an internet cafe. We would have to look around for an internet cafe, and we were not. They were just getting the internet, and they would have these BBC computers lined up in a little annex next to a gas station. So we would go down there. There were only a couple places in the city of Jinja, and these internet cafes, and this was one of them. It was just filled with these computers, wires everywhere, and it was really quite interesting. So you pay your money, and you sit down in front of this computer, and you dial up. And you would dial up, and you would wait, and you would wait, and you would wait, and the little blue circle would go around and around, and you would wait. And dial up might take 5 or 6 minutes just to log on to the internet. Then you would have to go to your Gmail, your account, your email account, and then that would take more time. And so by the time you finally got on, it would take forever. And we were there for 3 weeks. And for 3 weeks, we would drop into an internet cafe, and we would wait, and we would wait. And then the power would go out. And so we would have to start all over again. And we'd log on, and we'd have to wait. And then at the end of that trip, that particular trip in 2007, we went to visit our good friends Dave and Sue in England. And they lived in Rugby at the time. And I remember flying into England, and I remember being so impressed by how neat and tidy and organized England was compared to Uganda. And when we got to Dave and Sue's, Dave said, well, if you want to check out your email, just head upstairs. So we went upstairs into their, it was a beautifully organized room. And there was the computer, and I turned it on, and login time was like a minute. And within a minute, I was on the internet. I could not believe it. It was amazing. In 1 minute. Now, if I said to you, you had to wait a minute to get onto the internet, there would be no end to complaining. Because we are a fast food generation. Everything has to be instant. Everything has to be instant. And I just went on, like, when I was young, and I was young at one time, when I was young, I loved to read. And so I would read, now this tells you how groovy and cool I was. I would read the World Book Encyclopedia. So I'd have to go to our bookshelves and look at the World Book Encyclopedia, all the different volumes, and pick the volume I wanted, and then thumb through and find the article I wanted. And then I'd go into the bathroom and sit down on the toilet and spend half an hour going through the World Book. Now, the point of the story is not my toiletry skills. The point of the story is that's how I got information. You'd have to go and find the right volume and look it up and page number and all of that for information. So a little while ago, I typed in patience on Google, and I got in 0.54 seconds, Google searched and categorized 994 million different websites, different references to patients in 0.54 seconds. Wow, that's amazing. Now, how patient are you? Well, I think of myself as a person who's not very patient. And yet my daughter-in-law yesterday told me that, yeah, actually I'm quite patient when I have to go with my girls to the mall, and my girls being my two daughters, my daughter-in-law and my wife. And I could sit there for hours, just sitting there, even before iPhones and iPads. I could just sit there I'm very patient in that situation. But when it comes to driving, as soon as I get into the cockpit of a car, I become a NASCAR Napoleon, and I have to beat every car on the road. And if there's a car in front of me, my goal is to conquer that car and pass it. Especially between Cranbrook and Fernie, I have to pass them before we get to the windy tunnel area. And that's my goal in life, no patience there. So I pick and choose what areas I'm patient in. And what does the Bible say? The Bible says one of the fruit of the Spirit is patience. Whoa, I have problems with that because I am not necessarily a very patient person. But what does it mean? What does the Bible say about patience? Well, what it says about patience is there's a wonderful passage in Isaiah chapter 30 or chapter 40, and it's verses 29 to 31. And it's familiar to many of you. God gives strength to the weary and increases the power of the weak. Even youth grow tired and weary, and young men stumble and fall. But those who wait, who hope, who wait in the Lord, will renew their strength. They will soar on wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not be faint. Waiting. And what is the benefit of waiting on the Lord? For those whose hope, those who wait in the Lord, they'll renew their strength. Wow. Now, in a very practical way, what that meant to me was there was a group of guys in our church who came up with this daft idea of having a Bible study, a men's group meeting, prayer meeting, at 6 a.m. at McDonald's. 6 a.m. That meant I had to get up at 5:30 and go down there year round. And I thought, no, there's no way I can do that, because Thursday nights I would have a Bible study for the young adults. And so I would be definitely tired by then. But then I remembered this verse, wait upon the Lord, and he will renew my strength. And that's what God did. Thursdays were my day of energy because I would commit it to the Lord, and I would not get tired through that morning when I'd get up at 5:30 in the morning and go right through to the evening when I would finish up young adults group. It was amazing. See, in the Bible, in that passage from chapter 40, it says, you will soar on wings like eagles. Eagles have the ability to lock their wings. And what they do is they get off the ground by flapping their wings, but once they're in the air, they lock their wings and they soar. Where do they get the energy for that? Soaring is just using the earth's updrafts, the heat, and soaring. And I understand that eagles, if a storm is coming, the eagles would soar above that storm and they would fly over that storm. They wouldn't go through it. Soaring. Now, I don't know if that's true, but it sure sounds good, because that's the picture that God has for us, that those who wait on the Lord will soar. We will rise above the problems of the world. We will rise above and soar on wings like eagles. It's such a beautiful picture, using the heat and the power of the winds and the updrafts to keep us afloat above the storms. It's a beautiful passage. And so consider Isaiah chapter 40, verses 29 to 31, as you're thinking about this idea of waiting. Now, what are you to wait on? Well, there's a couple things. Ecclesiastes 3:11 says, it's a wonderful passage. And the first half of that passage says, God will make beautiful everything in its time. God will make beautiful everything in its time. And so you need to wait. So here I am, I'm waiting for God to take care of my hair or lack thereof, because the promise is he's going to take it and make it beautiful. But on a more serious note, whatever happens in life, God has a purpose for it. He will take care of it. He will make it beautiful. He will show you purpose. He may not show you purpose right now. He may not show you purpose 10 years from now. But God has a purpose in all things. All things work together for the good of those who love God and are called according to his purpose, is Romans 8:28. All things work together. All things can become beautiful because God is the one who does that. God is the one. So the one thing we need to wait on is we need to wait and see what God is going to do. And then we will. I was in South Centre Mall in Calgary, and just before Christmas, great time to go to a mall. And we go to the food court, and it's packed. And I have my 3 kids with me and my wife, and it's packed. So we get our food, and we're looking around for a place to sit, and it's full. Suddenly, a table opens up for 4. So we grab it. We go over there and we grab it, but there's 5 of us, and the table is for 4. So the 4 sit down, my wife and my 3 kids, and they get ready, and I go to the next table, and at the next table, there is a seat next to a woman. So I sat down, I asked her, do you mind if I sit down and eat with you? And she said, no, that's fine. So we get chatting, and I asked her a little bit about her backstory and what was happening. And she tells me she just came from the hospital where her daughter is in the hospital, just had surgery, and she was clearly upset. And so what she did is she went to the mall just to get a coffee, just to kind of get, and so I asked her, because she was clearly concerned, I asked her, can I pray for you? So right there in the middle of the mall, we prayed. I prayed for her. And afterwards she was in tears. And she said, are you a pastor? And I said, no, I'm just a blabber, a talker. But I have a connection with God. And I don't know who that woman is, but God intended us on that day to wait. And God intended for us to find that table that would take 4 people and that empty seat next to it where I could meet that woman. So I'm waiting for heaven, because I believe God will say, do you remember that time you were in South Country Mall? And do you remember that woman you prayed for? And do you know she's here waiting for you? Wow. That's waiting on the Lord. So there's so much in the Bible. Romans chapter 8 is a powerful verse. Romans 8 talks about it. Paul is speaking, and he says this, I consider that our present sufferings are not worth comparing with the glory that will be revealed to us. Wow. The suffering in this world does not compare to the glory that is in the next world. It's a waiting process. In Philippians chapter 1, Paul speaks there. He's talking about his life, and he's saying, he begins by saying, to live is Christ, to die is gain. Chapter 1 of Philippians, verse 25, for to me to live is Christ, to die is gain. If I am to go on living in the body, and this will mean fruitful labor for me, yet what shall I choose? I do not know. I am torn between the two. I desire to depart and go to heaven and be with Christ, which is better by far. But it is more necessary for you that I remain in the body. What Paul had there in front of him was a choice. He was either going to seek death, and death was all around him, or while he was on this earth, he was going to use his life for Christ. And then he had heaven to look forward to. So as you wait, think about patience and patiently look for God's purpose in everything that happens in your life, and look forward to the glory and the reward of heaven. And that will spur you on, that will renew your strength, that will allow you to soar above the sufferings of this world. Patience in the Lord means waiting for all of his blessings. They may not come now, but they're waiting for you, according to this word. Bless you.